The first time my best friend's mom looked at me like that, I forgot how to breathe. It happened on a Sunday that felt too quiet for something this dangerous to begin. Seattle had that soft gray light hanging over everything, the kind that made the whole city look half awake. I had been up late the night before working on a freelance logo project that barely paid enough to cover groceries. So I was running on black coffee and bad sleep when I biked over to my best friend Noah's house in Ballard. I was 23, a year out of college and still trying to build something that looked like a real life. During the week, I worked as a junior designer at a small marketing company downtown. It sounded better than it felt. Most of my days were spent fixing other people's ugly ideas and pretending I was grateful for the chance. On weekends, I tried not to think too hard about how far I still was from the version of myself I thought I would become. Noah had texted me 2 days earlier asking if I still had his old film camera. I did. He had lent it to me months ago for a class project, then forgot about it. I told him I would swing by and drop it off. Easy. Nothing important. Just another normal visit to the house I had been going to since college. Noah and I met freshman year because we were the only two idiots in our dorm who still bought frozen pizza at 2 in the morning and argued about which movies had the best endings. He worked in tech now and acted like he hated it, but the guy made more money than anyone I knew. He was still the same, though. Loud laugh, fast mouth, zero filter. If I had to name one person in the world I trusted without thinking, it was him. His mom, Vanessa, had always just been part of the background. She was 43, taught English at a private high school, and had that calm way of talking that made you listen even when she was saying something simple. She had been divorced for years. I knew that much because Noah mentioned his dad once in a while with the kind of shrug that said the story was old and not worth telling anymore. I had seen Vanessa 100 times before, in the kitchen with a mug in her hand, on the porch watering plants, calling upstairs for Noah to stop acting like a maniac. She was always kind to me, always warm, but in my mind she lived in a different category. Safe, untouchable, my best friend's mom. That should have stayed true. When I got to the house, Noah's car was gone. I almost turned around right then, but the front door was open, just the screen door shut, and I could hear music drifting from inside. Something slow and old. I walked up the path with the camera hanging from 2 fingers and knocked lightly on the frame. Vanessa appeared a second later, and everything in me went weird. She was standing in the hallway holding a small stack of books against her chest. Her hair was down, not tied back like usual, and it fell in soft brown waves over one shoulder. She wore jeans and a loose cream-colored sweater with the sleeves pushed up to her elbows. Nothing dramatic, nothing revealing. But maybe that was the problem. She looked comfortable, real, the kind of beautiful that sneaks up on you because it is not trying too hard. "Tyler," she said, smiling when she saw me, "you made it. Noah forgot to tell me you were coming." My name sounded different in her voice. I hated that I noticed. "Yeah," I said, holding up the camera. "I was just dropping this off. He asked for it." She glanced behind her, then back at me. "He's not here. He ran out to help a friend move a couch or rescue a computer or some other very important emergency." I laughed. "That sounds like Noah." "It does." She shifted the books in her arms. "You can leave the camera here if you want." I know I should have, but then she looked down at the books and gave a small, tired sigh. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. She smiled again, but this one was thinner. "Just trying to get through a stack of novels before school starts another unit. I promised myself I would update my faculty page too, and I still don't have a decent photo. Every picture of me looks either tired or annoyed." I leaned against the doorframe, half joking. Maybe the person taking them is the problem. Her eyes lifted back to mine, amused. "Are you volunteering your professional services?" "I'm not that professional," I said, "but I do know angles." That made her laugh, soft and real. "That sounded more confident than I expected from you." "Only because it's true." She hesitated for a moment, like she was deciding whether this was a harmless idea or not. Then she opened the screen door wider. "Come in for a minute. If I'm going to hate the photos, I may as well hate fresh ones." I stepped inside, telling myself this was nothing. The house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner with something warm underneath. maybe vanilla from a candle burning in the living room. Sunlight filtered weakly through the front windows. The place was neat in the way a house gets when only one person is really taking care of it. Not cold, just quiet. Vanessa set the books on the table and turned back to me. "Be honest," she said. "Do I look tired?" I looked at her, really looked, and that was my second mistake. Her face was soft without much makeup. There were faint lines near her eyes when she smiled. Not flaws, just proof she had lived. Her sweater slipped slightly at one shoulder when she moved, and I had to drag my eyes back up before she noticed. "No," I said, and my voice came out lower than I meant it to. "You look good." For 1 second, neither of us moved. Something changed in her expression. It was small, but I saw it. A pause, a question, like she was checking whether I meant it the polite way or the dangerous way. Then she smiled, slower this time. "Well," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Maybe I should let you take the picture after all." I should have handed over the camera and left. Instead, I followed her into the living room, my pulse already too fast, with the strange, sinking feeling that I had just stepped into something I was not going to know how to stop. I told myself the whole thing was harmless. That was the lie I kept repeating as Vanessa stood by the window and asked if the light was better from that side. I adjusted the camera strap on my shoulder and tried to act normal, like my hands were not suddenly too aware of everything. The room was quiet except for the faint music still drifting from the kitchen. She moved a vase of white flowers from the side table to the windowsill, then turned back toward me with a small, uncertain smile. "Like this?" she asked. "Maybe angle a little more toward the light," I said. "Yeah, there." She followed my direction easily, one shoulder toward the window, chin slightly lifted, eyes relaxed. I looked through the camera and froze for half a second. She did not just photograph well. She had that thing some people have where the camera catches more than their face. It catches the mood around them, the softness, the loneliness, the quiet confidence trying not to ask for too much. I took the first shot. Then another, then a few more. She laughed once when I told her not to look like she was grading an essay in her head. That laugh changed her whole face. It made her look younger, but not in a fake way, just lighter. I showed her the screen after a few shots and she stepped close to look, closer than she had to. Her shoulder brushed my arm. It was nothing, barely a touch. My body did not treat it like nothing. "Oh wow," she said softly, still looking at the screen. "That actually looks like me." I glanced at her. "That is you." She looked up then, and for a second the space between us felt too small. "You know what I mean." Yeah, I did. She meant she looked like the version of herself people stopped noticing after a certain age. Not Noah's mom, not the teacher, not the woman who handled everything. Just a woman, pretty, warm, alive. I swallowed and looked back at the camera. "You look better than you think." There was that pause again. That tiny silence that seemed to land heavier each time it happened between us. "You're sweet," she said. The word hit me harder than it should have. Sweet, like I was still safe, still harmless, still just her son's friend with a camera and decent manners. She stepped back and tucked her hair behind one ear. "Should we try a few outside? The hydrangeas are still hanging on somehow." "Sure," I said, maybe too quickly. We moved onto the front porch where the late afternoon light had gone softer and warmer. Her garden was a little overgrown, not in a bad way, just enough to feel lived in. There were terracotta pots by the steps, a chipped blue watering can near the railing, and a bench with a faded cushion Noah had probably never noticed in his life. Vanessa stood near the flowers, one hand resting lightly on the porch rail, and I lifted the camera again. "Look at me," I said quietly. She did. That was my third mistake. Something in her face had changed since we started. She was still smiling, but not the polite kind people wear for photos. This was more open, more direct. Like she had stopped pretending she did not know I was seeing her, really seeing her. I took the shot anyway, then another. "You're good at this," she said. "I told you I know angles." She smiled. "That is not what I meant." I lowered the camera a little. "Then what did you mean?" Her eyes stayed on mine longer than they should have. "You make people feel less awkward." The way she said people made it obvious she meant herself. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin, maybe because I get awkward first. That made her laugh again, and the tension loosened for 1 second, just enough for me to breathe. Then her phone buzzed from inside. She glanced toward the living room. "Probably Noah. Hold on." She disappeared inside, leaving me alone on the porch with the camera hanging in my hand and my thoughts turning into a mess. I should have left right then. That would have been the smart move. Hand over the photos, make some joke, bike home, pretend my chest was not tight for no reason. Instead, I stood there like an idiot staring at the flowers she had planted. When she came back, her expression had shifted. "Everything okay?" I asked. She gave a quick nod. "Yeah." Noah's staying downtown longer than he thought. Apparently the couch disaster became dinner and beers. I tried to sound casual, so he won't be back soon. As soon as I said it, I wanted to kick myself, but she did not look offended. She just looked at me. "No," she said softly, "not soon." The silence after that was dangerous. I looked away first and raised the camera again. "We should finish before the light goes." She did not move right away. Then she gave a small nod and stepped back into place near the porch steps. I took a few more photos, but my focus was slipping. Not because of the camera, because every second felt like we were standing too close to something neither of us had named yet. After a few minutes, I lowered the camera and walked toward her. "I think we got some good ones." She held out her hand for the camera, but when our fingers touched during the handoff, she did not pull away fast. Neither did I. It lasted maybe a second, maybe less, still too long. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, then lifted back to my eyes so fast I almost thought I imagined it. "Tyler," she said, and my name sounded different again, softer, more careful. Before I could answer, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. We both stepped back like we had been caught doing something we had not technically done. Vanessa cleared her throat and tucked her hair behind her ear again. "Come inside. I should at least send these to myself before you leave." I followed her in, trying to ignore the way my pulse was beating in my throat. We stood at the kitchen counter while I transferred the photos to her phone. Her coffee mug was still there from earlier, so were the books. Everything looked normal. That almost made it worse. When the photos finished sending, she scrolled through them slowly. I watched her face instead of the screen. She stopped on one of the porch shots. It was the one where she was looking straight at the camera. No forced smile, no teacher face, just her, quiet and beautiful and a little lonely. She exhaled softly. "I haven't liked a photo of myself in years." I shoved my hands into my pockets. Maybe no one was taking the right kind before. She looked up. "And what kind is that?" I should have lied. Instead I said, "The kind where someone actually notices you." The whole room went still. Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Not a lot, just enough that I saw it. "That's a dangerous thing to say," she whispered. My heart slammed once hard. "I didn't mean it to be." "But you meant it. It was not a question." I should have backed off. I should have smiled and turned it into a joke. I should have remembered Noah and every normal thing that existed before this afternoon. I did none of that. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I meant it." Vanessa looked at me for a long moment, and there was something in her face I had never seen before. Not shock, not anger, something worse, something warmer, like part of her wanted to hear more even if she knew she should not. Then headlights flashed briefly across the front window. "Noah." Vanessa stepped back so quickly it felt like the air changed. She set her phone down on the counter and picked up one of the books, though I could tell she had no idea which one. By the time the front door opened, she already looked composed again. Noah walked in talking before he even fully entered the house. "You would not believe how stupid this couch situation got." Then he saw me and grinned. "Tyler, man, you actually came through." "Yeah," I said, forcing my voice steady. Dropped off the camera. Noah tossed his keys into a bowl and looked between us. "Did she make you do teacher work?" Vanessa gave him a light look. "Helped me with a profile photo because unlike some people in this house, he knows how to be useful." Noah laughed and headed for the fridge. "That tracks." I glanced at Vanessa once. She was already looking at me, just for a second, then she looked away. That should have ended it. One strange afternoon. One moment too close to a line. But when I got home that night, kicked off my shoes and dropped onto my couch, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. "You for today, Tyler, and for what you said." I should probably not admit this, but I have not stopped thinking about it. I stared at the screen so long it dimmed in my hand. Then it lit up again with a second message. "Please tell me I am not the only one." I read her message 6 times before I did anything. Then I stood up, walked to my kitchen, opened the fridge, stared at absolutely nothing, and closed it again. My heart was beating so hard it felt stupid. Dangerous. I looked back at my phone like the words might have changed while I was not looking. They had not. Thank you for today, for what you said. I have not stopped thinking about it. Please tell me I am not the only one. There are messages you can answer casually. This was not one of them. This was the kind that split your life into before and after. Before, I could still pretend I was imagining things. After, I would know. She would know. And once that happened, there was no clean way back. I sat on the edge of my couch and typed 3 different replies. The first sounded too cold. The second sounded way too eager. The third made me look like I had never spoken to a woman before. I deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote the truth. You're not the only one. I stared at it for 1 second, then sent it before I could lose my nerve. The reply came fast. I should not feel relieved reading that, but I do. I leaned back and dragged a hand over my face. This was insane. My best friend's mom was texting me at night, telling me she could not stop thinking about me, and some reckless part of me felt more alive than I had in months. I typed again. I should probably feel worse about it too. 3 dots appeared. Maybe we are both doing a bad job of being sensible tonight. I laughed once under my breath, then stopped because nothing about this was funny. It felt too real now, too close. I looked around my apartment like the walls might offer some advice. Same little kitchen, same stack of unpaid bills on the counter, same sketchbook on the coffee table. Everything looked normal, but I did not feel normal at all. What are we doing? I wrote. Her reply took longer this time. I don't know, that is the truth. I just know I liked today more than I should have. I looked down at the screen and felt that same pull I had been trying to ignore since she stood by the window in that cream sweater and let me take her picture. I liked it too, I sent back. After that, the messages slowed down. Not because we ran out of things to say, because every word mattered more now. She asked if I got home safe. I asked if Noah had noticed anything weird. She said no. I told her good. She sent a message that just said good night, Tyler. And somehow that simple line felt more intimate than it should have. I barely slept. The next week felt stretched tight. At work, I sat in front of my screen trying to fix a client presentation while my brain kept drifting back to her messages. I would be adjusting colors or moving text boxes around, and suddenly I would hear her voice in my head. That's a dangerous thing to say. Then I would think about that pause in the kitchen, her hand around the phone. The way she asked me to tell her she was not alone in this. I told myself I needed space. That was the smart move. Do not text first. Do not go by the house. Do not feed whatever this is. That lasted until Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed while I was eating stale chips at my desk. Hope your day is less boring than mine. Just that. No heart, no wink, nothing obvious. Still, my whole chest tightened when I saw her name. I wrote back right away. That depends. Are your students behaving or destroying literature? Her answer came a minute later. One of them just called The Great Gatsby mid. So yes, destruction. I smiled at my screen like an idiot. That was how it became a rhythm, not huge confessions, not wild flirting every second. Just messages that kept finding their way into the cracks of my day. Small things, a joke, a complaint, a photo of the rain hitting her classroom windows, a sketch from my notebook. It should have felt innocent, but it did not anymore. Every message carried the weight of what we were not saying out loud. By Friday, I knew I was in trouble. Noah texted asking if I wanted to grab burgers and watch the game at his place. I almost said no, not because of him, because I knew she would be there, because I knew I wanted her to be there. That was the part I hated most. I was not just caught in something messy. I was wanting it. I got to the house around 7. Noah opened the door with a beer in one hand and immediately started complaining about work. I let him talk while I stepped inside and tried not to look around too quickly. Vanessa was in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter slicing tomatoes, wearing dark jeans and a faded blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Her hair was tied back this time, but a few loose pieces had fallen near her face. She glanced up when I walked in. For 1 second, everything in me went still. Then she smiled in that normal, easy way she used in front of Noah. "Hey, Tyler," she said. "You made it." "Yeah," I said, hoping my voice sounded normal. "I brought chips." Noah took the bag out of my hand. Perfect. You can make yourself useful for once. Vanessa laughed softly and went back to slicing tomatoes. Ignore him. He thinks insults count as hospitality. I moved into the kitchen because there was nowhere else to stand that would not look weird. Need help? She shook her head. I'm good. But then Noah's phone rang from the living room and he swore under his breath. I have to take this, he said. Do not let her burn the burgers. That has happened one time, Vanessa called after him. One time too many. Then he was gone, pacing onto the back deck with his phone at his ear. The kitchen went quiet. I stood by the counter pretending to study a bowl of lettuce. Vanessa kept slicing for a few seconds, then set the knife down and looked at me. You've been quiet, she said softly. I let out a breath, probably because this feels insane. Her eyes held mine. It is a little insane. That should have been the moment one of us shut it down, agreed to act normal, agreed that whatever this was had to stop. Instead, I stepped closer. Have you changed your mind? I asked. The question came out rougher than I meant it to. She did not answer right away. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the counter. She looked calm, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. No, she said at last, that is the problem. The words hit me low in the chest. Before I could say anything, Noah's voice sounded from outside, still talking loudly on the phone. Vanessa looked toward the deck, then back at me. This cannot happen in front of him, she whispered. I nodded. No? She searched my face for another second. Then she reached for the plate beside her, but as she moved, her hand brushed mine. Not an accident this time. A choice. Small, quick, barely there, still enough to make my pulse jump hard. That was all we got before Noah came back inside, still annoyed at whoever had called him. The rest of the night was torture in the most ordinary way possible. Burgers, beer, some loud game on TV that neither of us really cared about. Noah talking over the announcers like he personally coached the team. Vanessa sitting in the armchair with her legs tucked under her, smiling at the right moments, looking perfectly normal. Every now and then our eyes met and moved away too fast. At one point, Noah went upstairs to grab a charger, and Vanessa leaned toward me from her chair. Walk me to the porch when you leave. She murmured so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. Then she leaned back like nothing happened. I stayed another 20 minutes so it would not look strange if I left too soon. My brain barely followed anything Noah said. When I finally stood up, I made some excuse about an early morning project. Noah groaned and told me adulthood was ruining my personality. Vanessa walked me to the door. That alone was normal enough. She had done that before. But when we stepped onto the porch and the door closed behind us, the air changed instantly. The night was cool, the street was quiet. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. I turned toward her. She wrapped her arms lightly around herself and looked out at the yard before looking back at me. I should not have asked you to do that. Walk you out. She gave me a look. You know what I mean. I stepped a little closer. Then why did you? Her throat moved as she swallowed. Because I wanted 1 minute where I did not have to pretend I wasn't thinking about you. That knocked the air out of me. I moved before I fully decided to, not all the way. Just close enough that if either of us leaned in, that would be it. She looked up at me and I could see the conflict all over her face. Want, fear, guilt, all of it. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. Tyler. The way she said my name nearly undid me. I lowered my voice. Me to go? She did not. Instead, her hand lifted slowly and rested against my chest, right over my heartbeat. I do not know if she meant to calm me down or check if I was as affected as she was. Either way, it made things worse. Her eyes dropped to my mouth for one brief second. That was all it took. I bent my head a little, giving her every chance to stop this, every chance to step back and save both of us. She did not step back. The kiss was soft at first. Careful, barely there, more question than answer. Then it happened again, and this time there was no mistake. Her lips were warm, slow, hesitant in a way that somehow made it feel more intense, not less. My hand came up to her waist without thinking. I held her like I was afraid to do it wrong, afraid she would disappear if I moved too fast. When we pulled apart, neither of us went far. Her eyes were wide, so were mine. Oh my God, she breathed. I let out a shaky breath. Yeah. She took a step back then, one hand rising to her mouth like she could still feel it there. Tyler, I can't believe we just did that. But she did not sound sorry. She sounded overwhelmed. Inside the house, I heard Noah laughing at something on the TV. The sound hit both of us like cold water. Vanessa looked toward the door, then back at me, panic flickering in her face now. "You need to go." I nodded, even though every part of me wanted another minute. Another kiss. Anything. Okay. She opened the door, then paused before stepping inside. "Do not text me tonight," she said quietly. "Please, I need to think." That stung more than I expected, but I understood. Okay. I headed down the porch steps, got on my bike, and rode home with my thoughts tearing into each other the whole way. I had kissed my best friend's mom. There was no softer version of that sentence. No way to dress it up. It was real now. When I got home, I did exactly what she asked. I did not text. I showered. I sat on my couch. I turned the TV on and off. I checked my phone every 3 minutes anyway. Nothing. Midnight came and went. Still nothing. I finally fell asleep sometime after 1 with my phone in my hand. The next morning, I woke to a message sent at 6:14 a.m. I cannot pretend that did not mean something to me. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. Then I opened the second message, but I am terrified of what it means if it did. I read that message while still half in bed, my hair a mess and my heart already beating too hard for 6 in the morning. I sat up slowly and stared at the words again. I cannot pretend that did not mean something to me, but I am terrified of what it means if it did. That sounded like Vanessa. Honest, careful, trying to hold two truths at once. Wanting this and fearing it in the same breath. I understood because I felt the same way. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long time before I typed anything back. "Me too," I wrote, about all of it. I almost added more, but I stopped there. Anything bigger felt too heavy for a text before sunrise. A minute later, 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then came back again. Finally, her reply came through. "Can we talk today? Somewhere not here." I sat there for a second, knowing that whatever happened next would decide everything. Not just the part between me and her, the part between me and Noah too. Maybe all of it. "Yes," I typed. "Just tell me where." She picked a small park near Golden Gardens, the one with the benches that looked out toward the water. I got there early because there was no way I was going to sit in my apartment waiting. The sky was pale and cold. The kind of Seattle morning that felt damp even when it was not raining. The sound of the water hitting the rocks was soft and steady. I stood by the path with my hands in my jacket pockets and tried not to think too far ahead. When Vanessa walked toward me, my chest tightened at once. She wore a long gray coat over jeans and boots. Her hair was tied back, and she had on dark sunglasses even though the sun was barely out. She looked beautiful. She also looked like she had not slept much. I knew that feeling. "Hey," I said. "Hey." For a second, neither of us moved. Then she gave me a small, tired smile and nodded toward the bench near the shore. We sat down with a little space between us. Not because we wanted it, because we had no idea what else to do. "I barely slept," she said after a moment. "Same." She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "At least that part is mutual." I looked out at the water. "I don't regret kissing you." The words came out before I had time to soften them. She turned to me. Slowly, she took off her sunglasses. Her eyes looked tired, but they were clear. "That is exactly the problem," she said quietly. "I don't regret it either." Hearing her say it out loud made everything feel sharper, realer. She folded her hands in her lap and stared down at them for a second. "Tyler, I need you to understand something. This is not just some crush for me. That would almost be easier. It is more than that, and that scares me." "It scares me too," I said, "but I still want you." She looked at me then, really looked, and I could see her trying not to let that matter as much as it clearly did. "You are 23, she said. "You have your whole life in front of you. And you think that means I don't know what I feel?" "No." She shook her head. "I think it means your life is still opening. Mine is more settled, more complicated. I could have backed down there, maybe I should have, but that would have been a lie. You don't feel settled when you're with me," I said. Her lips parted slightly. She did not deny it. I kept going. "You feel seen, you said it yourself, and with you I don't feel like some lost kid trying to act older than he is. I feel like myself." Her eyes turned glassy for a second, but she blinked it away. "You make this very hard." "I think it already is hard." That got a small, real laugh out of her, and somehow that simple sound gave me courage. "Do you want this to stop?" I asked. She did not answer right away. The wind moved a loose strand of hair across her cheek. She reached up and tucked it back, buying herself a second. Then she looked at me and said the one thing I had been hoping for and dreading at the same time. No. The word sat between us like a live wire. I nodded slowly. Then we have to stop pretending that is not the truth. A long silence followed, not empty, heavy, full of consequences. Finally she said, if this becomes real, we tell Noah. I will not do this behind his back for long. I can't. He is my son and you are his best friend. He deserves honesty even if he hates us for it. I hated how right she was because it meant pain was no longer some vague future thing. It was close, real, waiting. I agree, I said, though my stomach tightened the second I said it. But we tell him together. Her face softened. Together. We sat there a little longer talking through the ugly parts, how bad it could go, how angry Noah might be, how people would judge, how the age difference would always be the first thing anyone noticed. It was not a romantic movie kind of conversation. It was awkward and serious and full of the kind of honesty that makes you feel stripped down. But that was how I knew this was real. We were not talking about fantasy. We were talking about what it would cost. When we finally stood up from the bench, neither of us moved to leave right away. I invited you here to end this if I had to, Vanessa admitted. My throat tightened. And now, she took one step closer. Now I think ending it would be another kind of lie. I looked at her for a second, making sure she meant it. Then I reached for her hand. This time she took mine without hesitation. No porch, no panic, no rushing apart because of a sound from inside the house. Just her hand in mine by the water, cold fingers warming slowly around my own. I don't know what happens next, she said. I know one thing. What? I held her gaze. I don't want to go back to pretending you're just Noah's mom. The look she gave me then nearly broke me open. Tender, scared, relieved all at once. She stepped close enough that I could smell her perfume under the clean morning air. And I don't want to pretend you're just his friend. I kissed her then, not like the night before, not startled, not stolen. This one was slower, certain, the kind of kiss that said yes even while the future stayed messy. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested lightly against mine. We tell him tonight, she whispered. I shut my eyes for 1 second. Tonight. That whole day dragged. Work meant nothing. My screen blurred in front of me. Around 7, I parked my bike outside Noah's house and stood there for a full 20 seconds staring at the front door like it belonged to someone else's life. Vanessa opened it before I knocked. One look at her face told me she felt just as sick as I did. Noah was in the living room, sprawled on the couch, talking about some trade rumor on his phone. He looked up when I walked in. Tyler, he said. You look like you're about to confess to a crime. I almost laughed because in a way I was. Vanessa closed the door behind me. Noah looked from her to me and his smile faded a little. He sat up straighter. What is this? He asked. No one answered right away. Then Vanessa moved to stand beside me, not behind me, not across the room, but beside me. I felt her hand brush mine once, quick and hidden from Noah's angle. Like a last bit of courage passed between us. Noah, she said softly, we need to tell you something. The room went very still. He looked at her first, then at me again, and I saw the exact second he realized this was not going to be a normal conversation. His face changed. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something harder. What kind of something? He asked. I took a breath that did not feel big enough. The truth, I said. And that was the moment everything finally began.